Where will the Texas Tech football recruiting class of 2023 finish? Well, if history is any indication, I can tell you in this video. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm RC Maxfield here from the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that sub button to stay in the know on Texas Tech athletics all year long. We're not just talking about football and men's basketball on this channel. We'll be talking about soccer, volleyball, softball, you name it. We will have you covered and up to date on that athletic program in Texas Tech athletics right here on this channel. But let's jump into the crux of today's video, which is where will the 2023 class for Texas Tech football recruiting finish? And now currently on Rivals and 24/7, they are both 17th in the country. And Rivals and 24/7, for those that don't know, do things a little bit differently when it comes to points, right? So Rivals has Texas Tech at 1,718 points and fourth in the Big 12. Now, you look at it from the 24/7 point of view, they only have 217.69 nice points and fourth in the Big 12, right? So they do things a little bit differently when it comes to points, but I really got interested in this because obviously Texas Tech landed another big-time recruit over the weekend in Jordan Samford, the safety from Mansfield, Timberview, Arlington. And listen, I'm not going to go there and act like I know everything about these recruits. That's not my business in terms of what I'm good at in the industry. I'm not very good at that. Like, that is just not me. The only time that I know about recruits is if those recruits tell me about themselves, somebody close to them, or I'm told by somebody close to the situation as well. But Jordan was one of those guys where I was very interested to see where he ended up. You had TCU in the mix. Maybe he was going to stay in the Metroplex, but instead he will head out to the 806, which is super interesting considering Texas Tech already signed Brendan Jordan, another safety in the class. And not to mention they have Isaiah Crawford from Post Texas, who is their #1 ranked commit currently in the class of 2023. But really what I wanted to do was go back and see where the current points that Texas Tech has both on Rivals and 24/7 in terms of recruiting points, where those points ended up after their recruiting class was over. So for example, where did those points land you in the class of 2016? Or where did those points land you on Rivals after, the class of 2022 or whatnot, right? I wanted to see that, and I went back 10 years to see where these points averaged out. And honestly, if Texas Tech ends up where the averages were out for the past decade, y'all are going to be pretty happy. So let's start with where teams finished with 1,718 points over on Rivals. Now, I'm going to go back all the way to 2013 and give you the yearly averages for those finishes in terms of those amount of points nationally. So you have 27th in 2022, 19 in 2021. You got tied for 27th in 2020, and then so on and so forth all the way down to 2013. It's either 26th, 27th, or 28th. So the average finish for that amount of points after the whole recruiting class is over, remember, Texas Tech can still add to this recruiting class, was 26.3 nationally. The average finish for Texas Tech recruiting during that decade span was 52nd. Double. Yes, you heard that right. Double what they are currently predicted or projected to go if they add nobody else in this recruiting cycle. That's according to Rivals. Now you go over to 24/7 where they have 217.69 points for the Red Raiders. And crazy enough, 2022 was 38th nationally. Apparently that was just a big boom on the recruiting cycle. But everywhere from 2020 all the way to 2013, you were ranked between 23rd and 30th, with the highest actually being 2021, where that amount of points would have gotten you the 20th ranked recruiting class in the country. So averaging that out from 2022 to 2013, the average finish, just like Rivals, was 26th. And Texas Tech, the average finish on 24/7 for Texas Tech in that decade was 51st. So again, almost double. And I think when you look at these numbers, there's one thing that is abundantly clear. It is safe and just an absolute safe bet that Texas Tech will finish with a top 26 recruiting class in the class of 2023. History, a decade, proves that, right? And if you look at why that's such a big deal for Texas Tech, we'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk about some of the recruits Texas Tech has landed in the past 3 recruiting cycles, because you look at it, Just a fun fact, right? Just a fun fact from these 3 past recruiting classes. You have landed 5. Yes, 5 of your top 18 players to ever commit to Texas Tech. Think about that for a second. Obviously, Matt Wells was the head coach for one of those recruiting cycles when it ended. Joey McGuire will be the head coach for 2 of them. But you have 5, yes, 5 of your top 18 commits ever in the past 3 recruiting cycles. And the ones not in the 2022 class I'll name right now, you got Morton, and then obviously Morton is the 7th all-time player ever committed to Texas Tech and the highest ranked quarterback. And then you have Horn, who is obviously in the 2022 class from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, an athlete. Pretty sure they're going to have him playing in the secondary. Just an absolute stud. Love the lettuce game, by the way. Lettuce game is hair, people. But he's 15th all-time, according to 24/7. And in the class of 2023 alone, Texas Tech currently has 3 of their top 18 ever in terms of all-time commits, according to 24/7. And I think it's telling more so that all 3 of them are on the defensive side of the football. You got Isaiah Crawford, you got Brendan Jordan, and now you got Jordan Samford as well. And Isaiah Crawford is the 10th ranked commit all-time, just ahead of a all-time great at Texas Tech in Graham Harrell. And then you have Brendan Jordan, who is 16th all-time, and then the newest Texas Tech commit, Jordan Samford, at the time of this recording, is 18th all-time, and he is just ahead of a really solid and reliable NFL offensive tackle. I'll give you a second to guess. Better yet, I gave you 3. It was LaRaven Clark. So why does this matter, right? That's probably what you're looking at your screen right now and thinking to yourself, RC, why does this even matter, right? Like, why does a recruiting class matter? The only thing that matters is what they do on the field. And I somewhat agree with you, but you have to get talented players to be on the field. And Texas Tech's highest recruiting class in the past decade was, 32nd nationally. You think about that, 32nd. You're going to beat it by probably 6 spots if history repeats itself. And we're not talking about a 5-year sample size. We're not talking about a 6-year sample size. We're talking about a legit decade sample size of where that many points on each site, Rivals and 24/7, will land you nationally. And that's 26th. Both sites agree. It's just 26.2 or 26.7. But Texas Tech, their average finish has been 51st or 52nd, depending on the site you look at. This is big for Texas Tech because when you look at what they are doing, they are building in the trenches and on the defensive side of the football. They know they can attract offensive talent here. History has proven that, whether Texas Tech has proven to be good on the gridiron or they've just been mediocre. It doesn't matter. They have proven to get offensive skill players out here, and maybe even some that aren't highly ranked. They get them to produce ad nauseum, and they get them to produce at the highest level they can possibly get them to. So for me, this matters because the last time Texas Tech was in the top 26 nationally was in 2012 when they were ranked 20th. And you had some of the best commits that Texas Tech has ever seen in that class. So it's very interesting to me to see how this will end up. But Texas Tech, if you go by history in the past decade, will have a top 26 recruiting class and maybe even a top 25 recruiting class nationally. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, that would rank them currently 4th in the Big 12 behind the likes of Texas, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Baylor is actually just 1 spot ahead of them currently in the rankings. But hey, gonna wrap up this video. Let me know where you think Texas Tech ends up nationally when it comes to the class of 2023 in their recruiting class. If history repeats itself, it's gonna be in the top 26, but how high can they possibly go with some of those targets they have out there starting to gain a little bit of steam, it sounds like, towards the Red Raiders? If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Twitter. The link to follow me will be in the description below, or if you just wanna go look me up on Twitter, it's at RCMB323. And once again, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that sub button right below me. Turn it from red to gray to stay in the know on everything Texas Tech athletics all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.